enable us to deepen our relationship with Srila Prabhupada and get a glimpse into what was going on at the time and his interactions with his disciples. And we can even get instructions and lessons from there to apply in our own lives. So it's much more than just a history. So I think at times I'll just read snippets from the book that just particularly struck me. So it'll be a bit subjective, you know. I might focus on some things in the book and neglect some other things. But I hope but that's what the whole book is there for you to read it yourselves also. So some important things might even be left out from what I'm mentioning today, but you can get everything by actually reading the full book. I'm just going to cover a few things that personally struck me. So, the book begins in August 1970. And just to set the scene, this is a time when, I'm not even sure, is it etiquette, am I allowed to take my mask off? Okay. So, in 1970 August, Srila Prabhupada is preparing to return to India. And in his words, he said to revive the spiritual culture of India. And just to give some background, this is a point in time in the movement when the movement is growing very strongly and rapidly in the West. There's about 50 centers. And it's probably hard to imagine now, but it's practically non-existent. The movement was practically non-existent in India, but was very strong in the West. I think, and now, I mean, it's a huge explosion in India. I think Delhi alone has 27 ISKCON temples. So it was a very different time to now. But as we'll see, Prabhupada had this idea of reviving the spiritual culture of India via the Indians seeing all the Western devotees, you know, basically living India's great heritage, but in the West, and the Indians may have even neglected their own spiritual culture. So this was August 1970. And Prabhupada sent the word out to all the temples to send one devotee from each center to help him in his mission in India. And he said, the message send the best man you can spare, which was usually the second in command. So in this way, Giriraj Maharaj, who at that time was a brahmachari, he got selected to go from Boston. And so in October 1970 now, they actually start making their way to India. And one of the devotees there was Guru Das Prabhu, who is the husband of Mother Yamuna, the same Mother Yamuna who sang the Govindam prayers that we sing every morning. So her husband was Guru Das Prabhu, and he organized small little cheap cargo planes, actually they were, to actually make the trip. And the reason I'm mentioning him is because something that's not mentioned in the book, but which I heard about from a class by Guru Das Prabhu, was their experience on the way to India. Giriraj Maharaj covers it in the book, but he doesn't cover it in the colorful details that Guru Das Prabhu mentioned, so I thought I'll just share those. So on the way to India, they, and by this cargo, when I say a cargo flight, it's literally like a small, tiny little plane that, where the wind can affect it. And on the flight, there's someone carrying a goat in his hand. The cockpit doesn't even have a door separating it from the plane. There's a little cloth thing. So the pilot is on this side, and then there's a little cloth, and then everyone else is here. There's no door to the cockpit. It's a really, really cheap flight. And so on the way they had to go to Egypt to stop over and refuel and things. And in Egypt, when they arrived, just recently, the president of Egypt, President Nasser, had recently been assassinated. So it's a time of great turmoil there. And but just to show the kind of transcendental nature of Giriraj Swami, as soon as they arrived, he went out on the tarmac and started doing a Harinam. Now this is a Muslim country, Egypt, and he's just doing a Harinam just after the president was assassinated. And Gurudas Prabhu he's taking pictures of this with his camera because he had just bought a new camera. And he's seeing, in his camera lens, he's seeing the devotees are doing Harinam, all these soldiers with bullets on them and machine guns moving at the devotees and with like very violent looks on them. And then he's like wondering what to do. He's just seeing this through his camera lens and he's like, he can see these soldiers are very upset by what's going on. And then he goes and he diffuses the situation by saying, yes, they are glorifying President Nasser. And that's how the situation got diffused. And then later on, even all those soldiers started joining in the Harinam and dancing up and down with the devotees, and it became a great ecstatic event, which Giriraj Maharaj describes, but he doesn't describe the whole circumstances that he was the devotee who actually who started this Harinam, just because of his own kind of transcendental arrangement, despite the challenging circumstances of the recent assassination. So I thought I'll just share that because it's not mentioned in the book. So then after that, the devotees arrive at the house of a wealthy friend of the devotees, Mr. Sheikh Sharia, and he was living in a really elaborate, like a mansion basically. It even had elevators on the inside of his house. It's a five-story building. And Giriraj Maharaj says that this was the first first private residence he had seen which had elevators in them. But what struck him more than the opulence of the whole place was actually the devotion of all the residents there. Because what he saw, the women of the house were always engaged in deity worship, and there were even hired Brahmins to cook and offer all the food. And this was the first time Maharaj had seen people outside of ISKCON offering food and worshipping deities, and he was struck by their natural devotion they had. So the next snippet I'll just read just sets the mood of their whole stay in India. This is from the book. Prabhupada knew that the people of India wanted to imitate the West, and especially America. So if they saw that Americans took to Krishna consciousness, they would want to do that too. And his strategy worked. Seeing us, Indians re-evaluated their own traditions, their own culture and practices, and considered that there must have been more there than even they themselves had thought. Otherwise, why would Americans and Europeans, who had every chance to enjoy material facilities and sense gratification, be chanting Hare Krishna and dancing, studying Bhagavad Gita and preaching? Why would they come to India? So they were thrilled, and sometimes when they saw us doing Sankirtan, tears would come to their eyes and they would be moved to join. So that kind of sets the whole mood of the whole India stay for the rest of the period. And they used to have evening programs on the roof where they were staying. And just to give an insight into Prabhupada's mood at that time, I'm going to read a small bit that this is what Prabhupada spoke to a gathering of people who had come to an evening program. He said, Ladies and gentlemen, he said, you are all so highly qualified, you are all so much devoted, and you have such good qualities in all respects. You are all intelligent, learned, and educated. You are all very great persons. I beg you, I take the straw of the street between my teeth, and I beg you, just chant Hare Krishna. Please chant Hare Krishna. He was begging them on the spot. And so Giriraj Swami says he was very moved and humbled by Prabhupada's earnestness, humility, and compassion. So, in general, Hare Krishna, Prabhupada. In general, this whole stay was, there were various speaking engagements for Prabhupada at various conferences that they were invited to, basically by Mayavadis or impersonalists who were very, very prominent in India and are still prominent in India. And they used to kind of invite Prabhupada and the devotees not really to hear their philosophy, but just because they were very attractive, because they would often do kirtan, and being foreign devotees, they were very attractive to the locals. So, so Prabhupada and the devotees would get invited to various of these engagements and conferences, not really with the serious intent of learning from them, but just because they were an attraction to attract other people to come. But Prabhupada obviously used these conferences to his advantage, and his general message, the impersonalists at these conferences would generally talk about sadachar and how to develop good behavior in this age of Kali, because they saw that as a problem. And Prabhupada very practically mentioned, now we are saving wholesale jagais and madais. Therefore, if we want peace, if we want to be situated on the Sadachar platform, we must spread the Harinam Mahamantra all over the world. And it has been practically proven. The American and European Vaishnavas who have come here, who have chanted Hare Krishna mantra, they were cow flesh eaters, they were drunkards, they were illicit sex mongers, they were all kinds of gamblers. But having taken to this Krishna consciousness movement, they have given up everything abominable. Sadachar has come automatically. They are no more meat eaters, they are no more gamblers, they are no more illicit sex mongers, they are no more intoxicators. They do not even take tea, they do not even take coffee, they do not even smoke, which I think is very rare to be found in India. But they have given up. Why? Because they have taken to this Krishna consciousness. I do not feel that I have to say very much, he concluded. You can see what is the result of Krishna consciousness. It is not something artificial. It is there in everyone. I have not done anything magical, but this Krishna consciousness is present in all of us. We simply have to revive it. So this was generally Prabhupada's mood at these conferences. He didn't really speak much philosophy as such, because all these people were just kind of speculating. He was using the devotees themselves as living testimony of what the Krishna consciousness process was doing. So he was saying, so all these people would carry on saying speculative things, and then Prabhupada would just come and say, look at all these Western European boys and girls who have become Vaishnavas and given up all their bad habits. This is the practical result of chanting Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada's message was very much more impactful and powerful in that way, rather than just mentioning some words and, word jugglery like what the others were speaking. And then something very sudden and strange happened, which was Prabhupada stopped the street Sankirtans that were going on, which was a shock to the devotees at the time, because, from the time they joined, and we've heard many Prabhupada disciples mention this, like from the first day you join the temple, you're out on the street doing Harinam, maybe 10 hours a day or more, And that was their normal process. And everywhere in the West, this was the process, the actual process. And all of a sudden, Prabhupada told everyone, stop street Sankirtan. And he did this for a reason, because he said, in India, if we chant on the streets, people will think we are beggars. Because some people used to see the devotees and throw coins at them. They didn't really understand what was going on. So Prabhupada actually had a different plan for India, which was the life membership program, where the respectable people in society, they would contribute financially, and they'd get the supply of Prabhupada's books as well as the ability to stay at any of the centers in the world for their whole lives. So Prabhupada's from this we can see that Prabhupada was not very stereotyped in his presentation of Krishna consciousness, and even something as fundamental as Harinam Sankirtan, he was willing to, I wouldn't say stop it, but he was willing to change it according to time, place, and circumstance, that he knew that in India, okay, this is not the best way to present Krishna consciousness. We'll do the life membership way. So it's just something for us to learn from, that to always bear in mind what is the most appropriate way to present Krishna consciousness in different times, in different audiences. And it was quite a shock to the devotees, but eventually they got used to it. Another part I liked about this, when Prabhupada was speaking about the other scholars presenting at these conferences, he said, they will talk and talk about Vedanta, he commented, but it is just simply mental speculation, and they never come to any conclusion. Just then, one of the ladies removed the food offering she had made to Srila Prabhupada's deities and put the plate in front of him. He continued, they will go on speculating for many lifetimes. He popped a maha sweet in his mouth, but we will realize God simply by eating. So, that just shows the power of Krishna consciousness, that these people are studying and studying and speculating, but Prabhupada very impactfully, he just threw a sweet in his mouth and said, we will realize God simply by eating, because that's the power of prasadam. And something interesting that just happened immediately after that, the devotees were returning to Bombay, and at the Delhi station, they met, Prabhupada met a lawyer that he knew. And then while they were speaking, the lawyer asked Prabhupada, you should, start a center in Delhi, or start your activities there. And immediately Prabhupada on the train turned to Guru Das and said, this man is inviting us. Get down and see what you can do. And so this was the way things were back then. So all of a sudden, just on the way back by train, he said, telling Guru Das, get down and see what you can do. And the devotees just got down and left the train and just tried to start, that's how it was, It wasn't sort of heavily planned, and the devotees were so surrendered that they were just on a train with Prabhupada. Prabhupada told them, get off and start our center here. And they just did it, So that kind of struck me. That was generally the mood at the time. And then by now, getting to like 1971 March, a very significant event happened. A Pandal program in Bombay was arranged by the devotees this time. And it was organized by Shyam Sundar Prabhu, and it was a huge event, and he even organized a balloon to fly across the city and welcome everyone, saying Hare Krishna Festival. And it's not mentioned in the book, but I heard from other sources that Prabhupada really liked that idea, and he really appreciated the ingenuity and innovation that the Western devotees brought, and the interesting and attractive ways they came up to present Krishna consciousness. And the phrase Prabhupada used was, put old wine in a new bottle. So he really appreciated that. And now this program was absolutely massive. There were 20,000 people attending daily, and on the weekends 30,000. Now, the biggest program I've ever been for had 7,000 in the same tent. A couple of years ago in Vrindavan, I was lucky enough to be, we attended a few of the lectures Radhanath Maharaj had given to his group that he was taking, and we had on one day like 8,000 people in the same tent all hearing Maharaj speak. And I thought that was an absolutely massive crowd. I couldn't imagine anything bigger than that. But here there were daily 20,000 people, and on the weekends 30,000 people under the same tent hearing Prabhupada speak. And so it was really powerful. And Prabhupada, even in one lecture, he mentioned he was doing the wedding of a Swedish devotee and an Australian devotee right there in the program. And he said, this is the real United Nations. So it was a really powerful, really impactful program. And at this program, another very famous devotee came to Prabhupada for the first time, which was who would later become Radhanath Swami. And Prabhupada just spotted him from the audience, and he called him up and told the devotees to bring him up on stage, and it was very, very powerful. Then, just shortly after that Pandal program, was when Prabhupada made the first kind of announcement or the first plan for the temple in Bombay, the temple which this whole book is based on. So, the book says, after the Pandal program, Prabhupada revealed his desire to establish a permanent center in Bombay for training and the distribution of books and prasad. He wrote an open letter to our supporters. My plan is to establish in this most auspicious city a unique international Krishna conscious training center. Shri Shri Radharanath ki jai. Where hundreds of persons from abroad may be educated in the Vedic way of life, while at the same time Indian boys and girls may be trained up for prachar, preaching work in foreign countries. We will construct classrooms, workrooms, dormitories, a kitchen for large-scale public prasad distribution, a lecture hall, a library, and a beautiful temple for the glorification of Radha and Krishna. So this was Prabhupada's vision for the Juhu temple, and we can see that it's actually come about. That's the amazing thing about the devotees of the Lord. When they have visions and predictions, they must come true. The Lord will make it so. So then there were various other Pandal programs. After the success of the Bombay one, Prabhupada requested that the devotees perform similar programs in Calcutta and New Delhi. And then Prabhupada wrote a very interesting letter to Giriraj Maharaj, which could be relevant even for us here. So in the letter he says, so far our program for India, at present we are trying seriously for a nice house in the aristocratic section of Bombay, or also for a large plot of land in several acres near Bombay, to establish our India headquarters. Bombay is the richest city, the gateway to India, and in all respects the most important city. So we must have something here. Otherwise, when funds are there, we shall construct very nice centers in Vrindavan and Mayapur. That's all. Let many foreign students and disciples come to India for staying with us in these places. We shall be content to sit down there, chant, and have kirtan very vigorously 24 hours. If anyone calls us, we shall go away for a few days and have program. This is a really interesting part he mentions. Our real interest is in the Western countries. The trouble in India is we cannot preach. There are language difficulties and the people think they already know everything. But now many foreign tourists are interested to come here to taste the spiritual life, so we shall concentrate on that field. Recently we have received one letter from Cox and Kings, one of the world's biggest travel agencies, requesting us to kindly assist them by providing facilities for all the tourists coming from foreign places who are interested in seeing the real spiritual life of India. So in this way we shall work here. So I thought that was kind of relevant, that sometimes even here we might be disappointed in our preaching endeavors because the people we have in Durban, because of their background, they might also think they already know everything. They've heard about Krishna already. They think they know Krishna. What do we have to offer them? So, Prabhupada actually focused on the tourists there, and even we can even focus here on the tourists. Now it's COVID time, but we used to get a lot of tourists, and I think even still, because we're being a landmark, this temple is a tourist landmark recognized by the government. So we can focus on tourists as well who just come here by chance to see something spiritual. And I thought that was interesting. Then I think it's almost time to end now, so I'll just mention one more thing. I think I'll just skip this and just say that about Giriraj Swami, how he tried to trick Prabhupada. Actually, I won't mention that. I think I'll leave that as a surprise for you all, because it's actually a bit long to explain. But I'll just mention when they finally laid the cornerstone for the Bombay temple, and Prabhupada put Giriraj Swami in charge, and then Giriraj Swami couldn't visualize it himself, but Prabhupada could see all around. When Giriraj Maharaj went there for the first time, it was just an empty plot. No one could really see how this plot would become something amazing, but Prabhupada could see it. And Prabhupada said, one day this land with the building will be worth 1 crore of rupees. And that's 10 million rupees. It was unimaginable for the devotees because all they had in the bank were at most 2 or 3 lakhs, which is 100,000. And Prabhupada is saying this land will be worth 10 million rupees. And then this is how the land got its name. Returning from a walk with Prabhupada and a small group of devotees one morning, Mother Dvisa pointed to the property and exclaimed, "Oh, Srila Prabhupada, they have Disneyland, so we should call this Hare Krishna land." And that's how the Juhu property got its name, Hare Krishna land. Like the famous American theme park, we too had a major center of attraction. But instead of the central figure being a cartoon character, it would be Krishna, the chanting of Hare Krishna. So, I think we've just covered the beginning portion of the book, just with Prabhupada's plans and desires, visualizing the temple and what it would be, and laying the cornerstone, and finally with even naming the land, Hare Krishna land, as a reference to Disneyland. And I think that's a nice place to stop. And then next week you can hear further from whoever speaks next week from this point, and the series will continue. So Hare Krishna, thank you everyone. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Sorry? Oh. Oh, thank you, Brad. Oh yeah, I forgot to ask if there's any questions or comments, anything that you all might have read that struck you but was neglected in here. Yes, Mataji. Hmm. Yeah, it really was an amazing. I mean, there's a crowd of 20,000 people, and Prabhupada singles one person out, bring that boy on stage, and Radhanath Swami wasn't at that time. He was like living in a very austere way, and he had some plain cloth and matted hair. He didn't. He wasn't looking like now, you know. So, but Prabhupada identified him immediately and said, "Bring him up on stage." And yeah, that was an amazing thing. Namanta.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for the class. Just a comment on the point you made about that one way to preach in a place where the population may feel they know is to focus on tourists. Another thing that also can be done is to do more to reach out to the other half of the population. You know, they don't know, and they would also very much benefit from Krishna consciousness. So I think that's something. Just it's important
Yeah, no, definitely.
that we realize that and try to do that.
Yes, definitely. I think that's. We should be preaching to all types of people. People who are from um, backgrounds where they think they know everything, people who have never heard of anything, tourists, just absolutely across the board. And it might look different to different types of people, but as long as we're trying to reach out to everyone, because Krishna, we're all parts and parcels of Krishna, so he wants all of us to perfect our relationship with him, not just certain people and others. Okay, I think that's everything. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.